Yuyuta was a lonely boy who swore to die a virgin after his mom cheated on his broke dad. However, his life changed after his dad remarried, and he suddenly got a hot stepsister, so now he must resist the urge to work out with her. It all began one morning when Yuyuta's dad Teichai informed him that he was getting remarried to a bar worker named Akiko, who took care of him while he was drunk. Yuyuta thought it was a scam, but Teichai assured him that she was legit and said he'd get a chance to see that when they met later that day. Yuyuta didn't care as long as his dad was happy, but when Teichai threw a curveball by informing him that he'd also be getting a little stepsister, he freaked out. That afternoon, Yuyuta and Teichai met up with Akiko and her daughter Saki, and after the introductions, Teichai whispered to Yuyuta that he and Saki were age-mates. After the meeting, Saki and Yuyuta met privately, and she told him that she was relieved because she was initially worried that Yuyuta would be a nosy brat hoping to live his cultured fantasies together with his new stepsister. Saki then went into a more serious tone as she told him that she didn't expect anything from him, and she didn't want him to expect anything from her either. She asked if he understood what she was saying, and he smiled as he agreed to maintain that arrangement going forward. Some days later, Akiko and Saki arrived at Yuyuta's home, and Akiko gave them a ton of gifts for their hospitality before complimenting their home. Afterwards, Yuyuta showed Saki to her room, and she was impressed by how big it was. He apologized for the fact that she now had to share a house with two men, and she said that wasn't a problem before asking him why he was being so polite to her. She told him she preferred to be talked to casually since she didn't see herself as someone who deserved much respect, and Yuyuta agreed to drop the formalities with her. Yuyuta then offered to help her unpack her luggage, and she agreed, so they spent the next couple of hours unpacking her stuff until Yuyuta accidentally tripped and fell, alarming their parents who were downstairs. When Teichai and Akiko came by to check on them, they saw Yuyuta lose his mind when he accidentally grabbed a pair of Saki's plot armors, and they all laughed at him. A while later, Yuyuta asked Saki if she went to a school named Suisai, and when she confirmed that she did, he revealed that he attended the same school. He promised to pretend like he didn't know her at school, and she said she didn't care because it was the same for her either way. However, she said it would be better for him if they kept things that way, and their conversation was interrupted when Yuyuta got a phone call from his coworker Shiori. When Yuyuta arrived at work, Shiori pestered him with questions about Saki, and after giving her some answers, he asked how he and Saki could live as brother and sister, to which she replied that he should act naturally. The next morning, Yuyuta woke up and turned off the alarm on his cell phone before spending the next couple of minutes thinking of how to lose his virgin stench. After getting dressed in his school uniform, he went to the living room where he met Saki, who was also wearing her school gear while making some breakfast. When he asked if she slept well, she replied that she did and thanked him for the fresh bath water he gave her the previous night. However, she said he didn't have to do it again that night because it was a waste of water before heading off to school. A while later in school, some NPCs were talking about horror movies as they walked by the hallway, and Yuyuta was on the school roof staring at Saki, who was seated alone on a bench outside the building when he was approached by a friend of his named Tamakazu. Tamakazu told him it wasn't cool to interfere with someone else's love life, and Yuyuta replied that a babe like her was way out of his league. However, Tamakazu said he had it backwards because dating a girl like Saki would make him look bad. When Yuyuta asked what he meant, Tamakazu brought up some unpleasant rumors that had been flying around in school about how Saki was selling herself to different guys. He said he'd heard people swear that they'd seen her leaving the Love Hotel district, and Yuyuta said it wasn't like Tamakazu to believe in rumors easily. Tamakazu then revealed that when one of the guys from the baseball team asked Saki out, she turned him down by saying she was just as bad as the rumors said and claimed she didn't have any intention of dating anyone. Yuyuta presumed that the baseball dude was just getting grumpy over the fact that he got turned down, but Tamakazu said he'd heard the same story from guys in other clubs as well. Eventually, Tamakazu switched topics by asking about the new sister Yuyuta had, and before Yuyuta could tell him anything, the bells rang, so they left for the next lecture period. During the sports period, Yuyuta met Saki privately and asked if she was skipping sports. She asked why he was talking to her there, and he replied that he gets worried when he knows someone is skipping class. She playfully claimed he was trying to be a big brother who lectured her. So he assured her that he wasn't there to lecture her before asking her why she picked tennis. Saki said it was because a classmate of hers named Maya also chose tennis, but then claimed that it wasn't her only reason. When he asked if she and Maya were friends, Saki said they were, but also claimed that Maya was pretty much friends with everyone at the school. Saki then asked Yuyuta why he chose tennis, and he replied that it was because he wasn't a very admirable person in school. Saki comforted him by saying her other reason was just as pathetic as his own, and then revealed that it was because she didn't want to play team sport so she could keep being the ultimate loner. He asked if she was having trouble fitting in class, and when she asked if she was surprised about that, he said he always imagined that Jaris like her would be the center of attraction. Saki said she didn't mind it because as people left her alone, it gave her a lot more time for herself. When Yuyuta noticed her earphones sticking out of her pocket, he asked if she listened to music during her alone time, and she confirmed that she did. When Yuyuta arrived home from work that evening, he was greeted by Akiko, who told him she'd made dinner for him. He apologized for making her do all that work before going for her job, but she said it was alright and told him her job wasn't as exhausting as he thought because she was actually a bartender. Much later in the night, Yuyuta was studying in his room when Saki came by and asked how he was able to juggle school and work. He replied that it wasn't such a strange thing, and then she asked if he knew any easy part-time jobs that paid really well. She asked if there was a job that paid 10,000 yen or more for an hour or two of work, and he told her that he didn't think there were any normal jobs like that. Yuyuta was stunned when she said she'd continue selling herself, and she told him about how he learned from a book that doing that kind of work was the best way to make good money. He then asked if she'd be able to say stuff like that in front of her mom, and she said her mom would probably praise her for being a grown-up if she did so. Saki then asked if Teichai was equally as pleased to hear that Yuyuta was selling himself, and when Yuyuta asked why she assumed he was selling himself, she brought up how he told her he had a job the previous night. He apologized for the misunderstanding at the dinner table, and Saki revealed that she was dressing like a baddie so she could survive in society. Saki then spoke about the different ways women get judged in society, no matter how they lived, and claimed that her mode of dressing was the first step in her plan to stand out at school and become great at schoolwork. When he asked if it was exhausting, Saki said it was worth it so long as she could prove through haters wrong. However, Saki claimed Yuyuta was similar in the regard that he wanted to live an independent life, and Yuyuta replied by asking if she was getting a job so that she could live independently as well. She said he was correct and then apologized to him. After dinner, Yuyuta said he'd ask his work colleague for some ideas about a job for her, and after she thanked him, Saki said she didn't want to make him do everything for her. Because of this, they entered an agreement where Saki would make him miso soup every day in exchange for him helping her out with the job search. The next morning, Saki made breakfast and explained to a shocked Yuyuta that she was doing it as an addition to their contract from the previous night. Several hours later, Yuyuta told Shiori about his plans to live alone after high school, and she advised him that it was okay to rely on someone if he couldn't handle something by himself. During dinner that evening, Yuyuta told Saki about Shiori's advice, and she agreed that Shiori's words were true, but she still expressed her desire to live independently. When he brought up their parents, she said they were dependable people and said it would have been easier if Yuyuta was a terrible person instead. On his way to school the next day, Yuyuta saw Saki walking into the path of Truck-kun, and he desperately rushed to save her. Later in school, he watched her playing tennis with Maya while remembering how he scolded her for trying to unalive herself for no reason. In the shower that night, Yuyuta remembered when Saki told him that women faced battles all the time, and when he got out of the shower, he was surprised to see Maya seated right beside Saki in the living room. The next day, Yuyuta was on the bed remembering how Maya cheerfully talked to him when she saw him at home. When he went to the living room, Saki apologized to him and explained that she brought her there because Maya said she wanted to come see her new home. She also said she told Maya about the fact that they were siblings and revealed that Maya saw all the times Yuyuta secretly met up with her. Yuyuta apologized for not being careful enough, and Saki decided to exchange numbers with him. The next morning, Yuyuta was on the bed, and he overheard Sakurai having a cheerful conversation with Akiko as they made plans to eat breakfast together. During breakfast, Yuyuta noticed that the rolled omelets were more delicious than usual, and after Teichai confirmed that his taste buds were rocked as well, Saki revealed that the rolled omelet had a special broth which they called white dashi. Akiko said Saki could make it for Yuyuta since she knew the recipe, but Saki said she couldn't make hers as fluffy as Akiko's. Yuyuta said he likes fried eggs as well, so she decided to make that for him later instead, causing both parents to smile. A while later, Yuyuta was doing the dishes and he asked Akiko if he could throw her clothes in the laundry as well, but she said she'd be happy to do all the laundry herself. However, Yuyuta said he couldn't make her do that, and Saki brought up the fact that most of women's fabrics were too delicate for him to handle before offering to handle it herself. When it was time to head to school, Yuyuta picked up an umbrella and Saki surprisingly asked to walk with him to school. On the way to school, Saki started yapping about how she thought Yuyuta had an interest in cross-dressing, but Yuyuta said he wasn't interested in cross-dressing at all. As they walked to school, Saki apologized for her earlier mistake, and they had a deep conversation about how people often did things reflexively. They got to a certain bridge where Yuyuta told Saki that he didn't think she was the type of person who couldn't reflect on what she'd done. Saki suddenly moved towards him and whispered to him that he understood her too well. After school, Yuyuta went to look for Saki in her bedroom, but instead of her, he saw her plot armors hanging on a dryer and Saki startled him when she appeared behind him. As he walked away, he informed her that he had work that day. Later that night, Yuyuta was napping on his study table when he got a text from Saki which asked him if he was staring at her undergarments. When they met up, Saki brought up how he got startled when she saw him ogling at her melon containers, and she asked if he ran away because he thought she would have accused him of wanting to steal them. Yuyuta said she was right, and she claimed that it was a bit unfair for him before handing him a cup of cocoa. When he accepted the cocoa, she said they were even now and claimed that him being drawn to her undergarments was a reflexive reaction before telling him that she didn't think he was the kind of person who couldn't reflect on what he'd done. Yuyuta said he was relieved to hear that, but then she asked if her undergarments were tempting enough to catch his eye. When he said he wasn't saying that, she teased him by asking if the thought of stealing her plot armors had ever crossed his mind. Yuyuta said he felt the urge sometimes but would never do it, and he went on to explain that having an urge and acting on it were two different things. She agreed with his words and informed him that she'd already had her bath and dinner as she left for her room. The next day in school, Yuyuta was chilling by the side of the tennis court during practice and Maya surprisingly approached him to ask why Saki was acting weird that day. A while later, Yuyuta texted Saki, asking her if she was feeling down because something happened to her, but she replied hours later that nothing happened to her. During dinner that night, Yuyuta and Saki were unusually quiet with each other for minutes, and Yuyuta broke the ice by apologizing to her based on the fact that he was yet to find her a high-paying job. Saki said she never expected him to find one easily, but Yuyuta expressed his concern that she'd be making him dinner for nothing if things went on like that and asked her to rely on him if she needed help with anything. After dinner, Saki used the bath and Yuyuta was reading the latest One Piece chapter on his bed when Saki suddenly turned off his lights from outside. She took off the last piece of clothing she was wearing as she walked into his room, and when she climbed on his bed, she grabbed onto his face while asking him if he was willing to buy her body.
Yeah, boy.
Her mind went into diary mode as she remembered all the events that had happened between her and Yuyuta every day since meeting him, and her memories revealed that she was impressed by how level-headed and nice he was. She felt that he was the first person who effortlessly understood her, and after reminiscing about several of their conversations, she realized every thought that Yuyuta had was something she could relate to completely, which was why them staying together felt right. Suddenly, she started to feel that Yuyuta was dangerous because he understood her too well. Yuyuta interrupted her brainstorming by telling her that she was acting exactly like the kind of girl he hates and said he thought she didn't want to be seen as someone who used her looks as a weapon to get ahead. She tried to explain that she was doing it because he understood her so well, but Yuyuta cut her off by saying it was about her and not him, causing her to apologize. Afterwards, she told him about how her father used to be a nice guy, but he stopped trusting people after his company failed. Because of this, her mom started working twice as hard to provide for her, but he didn't seem to like that either because he accused her of being a succubus who got customers only because of her body. Saki claimed that it was wrong for him to take out his frustrations on her mom, and Yuyuta completely agreed with her before telling her that things went in a similar manner for his family as well. He said that after his mom cheated on Teichai, he started acting paranoid towards women for a while, and Saki realized that Yuyuta had a similar problem with his dad back then as well. Saki pointed out that they had a lot in common because they had a lot of broken parts, and Yuyuta said even with those broken parts, they'd be able to get along as brother and sister. He then told her to start calling him Big Brother, causing her to laugh before leaving his room. Saki started thinking about the days they spent together again, and she realized that she had started developing feelings for Yuyuta. A couple of days later, Yuyuta walked back from school while thinking about how he and Saki were essentially strangers because they didn't have the sense of kinship that a genetic connection provides, nor did they have any shared experience living together. However, he realized that in the month which he became a family with Saki, he realized that she was now less of a stranger since they shared a house together, and he couldn't quite find the word to describe their current relationship. When he got inside, Saki immediately rushed to him and asked him to tutor her in modern literature. When Yuyuta asked Saki her score, she revealed that she got 38 and said she never expected to fail despite the fact that she was never good at modern literature. He asked how she failed despite being great at other subjects, and she said it was because she could never really understand how the characters felt. Yuyuta said he didn't expect that answer because she seemed like a considerate type of person, and then brought up how she always tried to understand him to reach a compromise in every situation. However, Saki said he got it backwards because the reason people had to compromise was because they couldn't understand others' feelings, and he admitted that she had a point. She expressed her concern that she'd be forced to take makeup lessons during summer break if she fails the retest, and then revealed that she planned on working during the summer vacation. Yuyuta apologized for not being able to find her a job in time, but she said she wasn't blaming him and claimed that she felt bad for taking advantage of him. Yuyuta then agreed to help her study modern literature, and she thanked him for it. As Yuyuta tutored Saki, he pointed out that she did all right with the essay questions, but left the book questions at the end blank. He asked if she ran out of time while struggling with novels, and after she admitted he was right, she said it stung that he was able to pinpoint her weakness so easily. He apologized for not saying it in a gentler way, and she accepted his apology before telling him that she knew he was being blunt with her in order to help her. He pointed out that the part of the book she struggled with the most was about a novel named Sanshiro, which was all about the challenge of falling in love freely. Yuyuta said he felt that people currently understood some parts of the story better than they did when the book was written, and when she asked which parts he was talking about, he asked her to tell him the aspects of it that were hardest for her. She said she didn't understand what the characters named Sanshiro and Minko were thinking, nor did she understand their motives for any of the choices they made during the story. Yuyuta told her that Sanshiro had fallen for Minko, and when she asked if he meant in a romantic way, he told her that was the case and brought up the scenes in the novel where Sanshiro got jealous when other men approached Minko. Saki asked why he didn't just tell her to stop talking to other men if he hated it, and Yuyuta guessed that it was too psychologically challenging for him to be so direct with the person he likes. Saki said she didn't understand people who hid their true feelings, so Yuyuta asked her to imagine a situation where she couldn't express her true feelings, like the first time she fell in love. He asked if she's ever been so rizzed up by someone that she couldn't make the right decisions, and she replied that she had zero experience with love. When she directed the question at Yuyuta, he said that he as well was hopelessly single, causing her to reach the conclusion that their grades in the subject had nothing to do with experience. He said she was right and decided to stop trying to empathize with the characters since they couldn't relate to them and instead think of it as a math puzzle. He brought up the fact that Saki got good grades in history, and she claimed it was only due to memorization, so he told her she might be able to understand modern literature better by remembering the historical context of when the book was written. He told her to try linking her knowledge of history with the story in order to understand it better, and she agreed that it was a great idea, so he told her to try practicing this new reading pattern. Saki asked him if he thought she'd pass the retest, and he replied that he knew she would, which made her smile while promising to do her best. After spending hours practicing, Yuyuta said she'd improved greatly, and all she needed to have an easy retest was to master the novels that'll be covered. Saki thanked him and called him a great teacher before walking away. The next morning, Yuyuta met Saki studying in the living room, and when she tried to get up to make breakfast for him, he told her he'd just grab a toast because he wanted her to continue her study. She brought up her promise to be making breakfast for him, so he told her that their number one priority at that moment was to make sure that she passed her retest, causing her to thank him once again. In school, Yuyuta was arguing with Naruto fans on Twitter when Maya cheerfully approached him and started pestering him while calling him Big Brother. When he told her to stop calling her that, she said she was only trying to bond with him and started calling him other variations of that same name, which only annoyed him even more. Maya told him she was trying to release all her pent-up stress since she'd just finished all her exams, and when he asked if she had any retests, she said she'd never failed a test and bragged about the fact that her combined score in all 9 tests were 808 points. Yuyuta was stunned by this information, and she went even further to reveal that she was at the top of her class with a nearly 90% average score which she'd maintained throughout school. Yuyuta then asked her for a way to help Saki study better, and she brought up how she usually listens to background music while studying. As they walked away, Maya told Yuyuta that he was a great big brother. While Yuyuta was at work that day, his airhead colleague Shori teased him like usual, and during closing hours he asked her for a good genre of background music that would help Saki study better. She gave him some recommendations which she played through the Temu AirPods, and it sounded like something out of a Bruno Mars album. When he made Saki listen to it during dinner, she said it sounded good. He told her it was his work buddy who recommended it to him because of her studying problems, and he told her all about how airheaded Shori was. Yuyuta then said he did it to repay the favors which Saki had done for him so far, and she promised him to use the music that night during her studies. The next morning, Yuyuta sat on the dining table with his dad while Akiko served them breakfast, and when he noticed his breakfast was looking less scrumptious than usual, Akiko told him that Saki was still in bed. When he pointed out that it was unusual for her, Akiko revealed that it was because she'd been studying all night and expressed her concerns that Saki might catch a cold one day while sleeping under the AC with her tummy open. At work, Shori asked Yuyuta if they had more copies of a particular book, and when he pointed out that it was just one more left, she was disappointed that their suppliers didn't deliver. When he looked at the book in question, he noticed that it had been adapted into a movie, and then he started reading the synopsis to her. In the story, once a week in the park at midnight, a boy saw a girl carrying an old violin, and men from her past were chasing her. While unraveling the mysteries of that violin, the boy joined the girl for a journey through space and time. After finishing the read-up, he suggested shelving the book facing outward, and Shori agreed that it would work. When he asked if the movie was still showing in theaters, Shori told him that it would end the next day because they'd be replacing it with Marvel movies. Shori then asked him if he'd like to catch the late show with her that night since they both got off at 8 o'clock that night, and Yuyuta nonchalantly agreed before saying that he'd inform his parents later. As they walked away, Shori teased him a bit before asking if there was someone more important than his parents that he needed to message about their cinema date. Yuyuta didn't understand her, so she revealed that she was talking about Saki, who would probably be worried about him during their outing. Yuyuta said Saki wouldn't be worried about him, and when they got to the cinema, Yuyuta asked Shori what drink she'd be getting. When Shori said she wanted a Diet Coke, he laughed because she went for the most basic option in the book, and when he asked what kind of flavoring she wanted, she chose caramel. Inside the theater, Yuyuta told her that the popcorn was too much, and she said and got it that way because he was meant to eat it as well. However, Yuyuta said he didn't snack during movies and told her to eat as much as she wanted. When she begged him to eat it with her, Yuyuta eventually folded and ate some popcorn as they watched the movie together. In the movie, a demi-human boy ran all over town while carrying a heavy bag, and he eventually stumbled on a fence, causing the food within the bag to spill all over him. Just then, a demi-human girl showed up and was literally glowing as she smiled at him. She gave him her guitar and told him to protect it from some evil men that were after it. The boy was confused, but she went on to reveal that she had 6 months left to live, causing him to ask why. Before she could tell him, some men in hats made a dramatic entrance, causing him to run away with her. As they ran, the girl explained that her violin was very old and it gave off the same smell as the men chasing her for it. They eventually reached a cabin where the girl laid on the bed, and the boy confessed with tears in his eyes that he wanted to go with her to a special place. When he stretched his hand out to her, she grabbed onto it, and from the audience seats, Yuyuta noticed that Shiori was completely captivated by that moment. After the movie, Shiori and Yuyuta walked through the road together, and they eventually got to a vending machine where Shiori got Yuyuta a soda. After he drank it, she teased him a bit before telling him in a more serious tone that he was kind to her. Shiori then confessed that she had 6 months left to live, and Yuyuta said he could tell she was lying, but he still played out the movie by asking her to leave with him the same way the boy did. Shiori got hit with a hurricane of Yuyuta's riz, which overwhelmed her so much that she curled up in embarrassment, and afterwards, they talked about the movie for a bit before leaving the area. When they reached Shiori's street, Yuyuta thanked her for the music recommendation she gave him a few days earlier, and she asked him to give Saki her regards as she moved along. Shiori went into her car and fantasized about a similar movie where the demi-human boy who looked like Yuyuta watched in awe as she played the violin for him. Eventually, the demi-human boy joined her in playing the music, and they laughed gleefully together as the snow continued to fall. The next day, Yuyuta was having breakfast with Saki, and he told her that he was the one who put a blanket over her while she slept because he didn't want her to get sick before her retest. When she brought up the movie he saw the previous night, he told her it was named A Rift in the Blue Night, and when she asked how it was, he said it was good. He recommended it to her, but she said she'd see it after the test, and then she said she might end up reading the book instead because it could help her upgrade her literature grade. Just then, Saki asked if he was dating Shiori, and Yuyuta immediately confirmed her suspicions to be false by claiming that she was only his coworker who loved talking about books with him. Saki then said she'd start reading books more since he liked books so much, and Yuyuta loved the idea, but he told her to focus on her test for the meantime. When he got to work that day, he was helping Shiori restock when they surprisingly ran into Saki searching for a book in their store. After finding out that she was Yuyuta's sister, Shiori introduced herself to her and fawned over her for several minutes until she told Yuyuta she was looking for a study guide as well as the novel version of the movie they watched. Shiori tried to recommend the movie, but Yuyuta immediately turned her down on Saki's behalf, and Saki watched in shock as both of them bickered for several minutes. Saki then asked Yuyuta for some book recommendations, and after he got her some, he directed her to the shelf where she could get the study guide. When Saki took her orders to Shiori, Shiori helped her wrap them up and politely smiled while sending her off. After Saki left, Shiori told Yuyuta that Saki looked cute and then yapped about how she could be the real deal for Yuyuta, but Yuyuta dismissed her presumption by saying she was only his little sister. Saki overheard their conversation from the other side of the wall, and she calmly walked away after hearing Yuyuta's words. Some days later, Tomokazu met up with Yuyuta on the school roof and brought up some rumors he'd heard about how Yuyuta and Saki were getting close recently. Yuyuta said he was just doing some studying with her, but Tomokazu then said his sources overheard her calling him Oni-chan. Yuyuta was lost for words, and Tomokazu said he was willing to use all of his gifts as a wannabe relationship expert to back his buddy up in his love life. After school, Yuyuta was making his way home when Maya approached him alongside Saki and persistently asked to accompany them home. On the way home, Saki apologized to Yuyuta and explained that the reason Maya was joining them was because she'd asked her to help her study at home. Yuyuta asked Maya if walking home with them was awkward, and she replied that she didn't have anything against it. When they got home, Maya immediately made herself comfortable, and Saki apologized to Yuyuta on her behalf for all the noise she was making. Yuyuta said it was no problem and wished her good luck before heading to his room. Some hours later, Maya was helping Saki with her studies in the living room when Yuyuta showed up, and when he turned on the lights, Saki immediately asked to start making dinner. However, Yuyuta told her he'd handle it himself so she could focus on her studies, and she thanked him for it. Hearing that, Maya teased Yuyuta by saying he gave good husband vibes. Yuyuta was no Gordon Ramsay, so he struggled to understand the cooking recipes he looked up online, and he decided to take things easy by cooking up some rice when Maya suddenly came by the kitchen. She asked if he was having some trouble, causing Yuyuta to confess that he couldn't make sense of the recipes he had, and in response, Maya told Saki to spend the rest of the night reviewing what she'd taught her while she helped the pathetic virgin out in the kitchen. Saki thought it would be asking too much of her, but Maya said it was fine because she was determined to give them a taste of her housewifey powers. Afterwards, Yuyuta showed her the recipes on his phone, and they got some veggies out from the refrigerator, which she taught him how to chop. She then taught Yuyuta how to roll up some meatballs, and while Saki continued reviewing her studies, Maya watched as Yuyuta boiled the ingredients. Maya asked Yuyuta if he and Saki had any special kind of relationship, and Yuyuta replied that there would be trouble if they did. However, Maya brought up the fact that they were basically strangers who weren't related by blood, causing Yuyuta to ask why she was so interested in his relationship with Saki. Maya said it was because she noticed that Saki had changed a bit since meeting him, and to back up her statement, she brought up how Saki had been using a lot more perfume than before. When she asked if Yuyuta noticed this, he said he didn't, and she felt relieved by his answer because she'd have seen him as a weirdo if he said he did. Maya went further to reveal that last year, Saki only used wet wipes when she got sweaty instead of perfume, and presumed that she'd changed her habit because she had someone special in her life. Yuyuta then claimed that it was natural for her to be thinking about him, and when Maya started getting excited, he shut her down by saying he didn't mean it in a romantic way. He explained that it was normal for people to be mindful of how they smelled when they were living with people of the opposite gender, and then Maya pointed out that Saki was staring at him. When he saw that Saki was indeed looking in his direction, he told Maya that it was probably because she overheard their conversation thanks to the boombox she called a mouth. Yuyuta warned Maya that Saki would get annoyed if she continued hounding her with questions about romance, but Maya said it was too late because Saki was already fed up with her, and they were interrupted when the cooker alerted them that the food was ready. When Saki tasted the food, she said it was delicious, and Yuyuta said he was glad she liked it. Saki said he went all out for her by making sweet and sour pork, and then thanked him for helping her out. When Yuyuta asked how her studying was going, Saki said she was able to easily answer the questions Maya came up with thanks to his lessons, but also pointed out that Maya claimed her study method was inefficient. Yuyuta agreed that the method wasn't exactly a direct one, but Saki told him he didn't have to worry about the loudmouth's words because the method was working for her, and then she assured him that she'd do well in the test the next day. Yuyuta told her he was rooting for her, and she had a warm smile on her face as she thanked him. After school, Yuyuta struggled at work, and during his break hour, Shiori asked if he was okay since she'd never seen him fumble so badly at work before. Yuyuta apologized and said he was heading home. When he got home, he looked for Saki but couldn't find her, and then he rushed outside to get some clothes which were already getting drenched by the rain. As he folded the clothes, he listened to the news reports on TV talk about how the heavy rain in the area would persist all night and how it had caused a bunch of chaos on the highway. He texted Saki, asking her if she was okay in the rain, and then he asked her where she was. He stared at his phone for several minutes waiting for a reply, but he didn't get any text back from Saki, and when he started getting flashbacks of her thanking him for his help, he immediately rushed out of the house with 2 umbrellas. He ran through the hallway and eventually bumped into her on the elevator. When she asked where he was going, he explained that he rushed to come find her because he thought she was crying somewhere in the rain over another test failure. Saki apologized for making him worry and showed him her test result, which was 94% out of 100. She said she wasn't satisfied because she didn't surpass his score of 96, and revealed that she went to a different store for groceries because she wanted to show him gratitude. However, Yuyuta said he hadn't done anything to earn her gratitude since they only made a fair exchange, but then she listed all the things he did for her in the build-up to the test, including the dinner he made for her the night before, and then promised to make him an elegant dinner that night. Saki said she wanted him to depend on her at home the way he depended on Shiori at work, and Yuyuta agreed to let her treat him that day as they walked back home together. When summer vacation began, Yuyuta said goodbye to Tomokazu at school, and when he went to work, he was stunned when he saw Saki, who his boss said was there for a job interview. Sometime later, Saki started reminiscing about the time she was having problems with literature and back then she didn't understand why people stressed over not understanding each other. She knew it made her weird, but she found hope again thanks to Yuyuta. She remembered how thankful she was when he recommended some good music to her for her studies, but eventually she started to get annoying late-night thoughts about the time Yuyuta was spending with Shiori at work. She felt that she had no right to be writing things like that in her diary, but she decided to keep writing them anyway because it satisfied her. The day Yuyuta came home late from work without telling her, she got jealous when she realized he was spending time with Shiori. She also realized that she hated herself, and she felt like an awful person because she didn't know anything about Shiori. She wanted to welcome Yuyuta home that night when he came home, so she studied in the living room instead of her bedroom, but in the end, she couldn't stay awake until he got home. When she woke up, she noticed that Yuyuta had put a blanket over her, and this cleared the anxiety she felt the previous night. The day she visited the bookstore where Yuyuta worked, she thought to herself that Shiori was beautiful, mature, and had an adorable charm to her, which made her a great romantic fit for Yuyuta. Saki then ran into an ad on the wall which said the store was hiring new workers, and she decided to take on the job instead of looking for a shortcut. As she rode on the elevator on her way home, she wondered if it would bother Yuyuta that his stepsister was interviewing for a job where he worked. On the day before her retest, Saki felt grateful to Maya and Yuyuta for helping her out, and she really enjoyed the sweet and sour pork which Yuyuta made for her that night. When she found out she passed the retest, she wasn't surprised because she knew Yuyuta and Maya gave it their all while helping her study, and she was happy about the fact that she'd be able to spend her summer vacation however she pleased. She decided to keep studying bit by bit while saving up money from work. While she was looking at the help wanted poster at the bookstore, someone approached her and without thinking, she told him that she was interested. She didn't practice for the interview at home because she knew it would be awkward with Yuyuta around, and she also knew that she couldn't answer him if he asked why she was going after a job in the place he worked. When they were on the elevator, she refused to tell him that the actual reason she was late that day was because she was practicing for the job interview, but she knew that sooner or later she'd have to confront the anxious feeling she kept getting. She lied to him that she went to a convenience store that evening and added that the reason she couldn't see his messages was because her phone was dead. The more she lied, the more she felt doubt starting to sprout in her mind, and she realized that she was scared of the feelings she had at that moment. She knew that the feelings she had for Yuyuta could only be summed up into one word, but she contemplated whether or not to put it in her diary because she never believed she'd become just like a novel character. After she breezed through the interview, she knew she'd have to come clean to Yuyuta, but she was afraid to do it even if she knew it would bring her a sense of relief. She knew that telling him would free her from the anxiety she was feeling, and she felt that getting to know the parts of Yuyuta and Shiori she hadn't yet would clear up her clouded mind as well. Saki wondered why she was giving Yuyuta control over her actions, and she eventually realized that she was the one who tied herself up in chains by bounding herself to him. She knew that the whole thing was funny and embarrassing, so she decided that she'd never let anyone read through what she'd written in the diary. She felt that it would be safe if she hid it in the back of a drawer and locked it away, and then she asked herself to describe the nature of the unpleasant feeling she had in one word. In the present day, Yuyuta and the family were at the dining table, and he thanked Saki for the delicious breakfast she made him. Akiko asked them if they were calling each other by their last names because they were too embarrassed to use their given names, and both Yuyuta and Saki said they were doing it because using their given names just didn't feel right. When Akiko asked if they had work that day, Yuyuta said they were planning to leave by noon, and Teichai expressed concern over the fact that they were yet to go anywhere fun during the summer vacation. Teichai said it was a big deal because once they became third years, they'd have to concentrate on exams, and he also told them that their friends would probably be missing them. Yuyuta said he didn't have many friends, and Saki said she didn't have any plans with her friends as well. Saki met up with Yuyuta in his room a while later to tell him that she and Maya weren't close enough to hang out during summer break, and when Yuyuta brought up the fact that she'd visited them multiple times, Saki said it was because she was curious about Yuyuta and added that the last time was because she invited her. Saki said she and Maya usually gave themselves space when they didn't agree to hang out together, and Yuyuta said he was the same way with his friends. At the bookstore, Shiori noticed that Saki was having some problems on the job, so she told Yuyuta to give her some backup. When Yuyuta met up with her, he easily located the book she was looking for, leaving her wondering if he was a magician. On their way back, he explained how he found the book to her and claimed that Shiori would have found it way faster. The next day, Teichai was fixing up the AC in the living room, and when Yuyuta asked why Saki was still in her room, Akiko told him that she didn't handle heat very well and brought up how she used to cry for ice cream when she was still a snot-nosed brat. Some hours later, Yuyuta met up with Tamakazu at a diner, and Tamakazu asked if he was going to the pool with Saki and Maya. When he said he hadn't heard anything about it yet, Tamakazu said they'd probably invite him soon. After work that evening, Yuyuta walked home with Saki and told her about how she was getting praised by all the staff for being a fast learner, and they eventually got to a point where he asked if he was invited to the pool party she and Maya were cooking up. When she asked if he wanted to go, he said he'd feel out of place in a pool filled with cheery people, and she said he didn't have to force himself before revealing that she wasn't going as well. When they got home, Saki got into her room and finally related the unpleasant feelings she was having into a single word, which was jealousy. Some days later, Saki was walking home from school and she started to remember the good old days when she used to cry for ice cream. Back then, Akiko told her snacking at noon wasn't great because it would make her less hungry during dinner. When Saki kept demanding for ice cream, Akiko told her their dinner that night was beef stew, causing her to switch up by saying she wanted to have dinner instead. Akiko promised to get her the ice cream sometime later, and as they walked home together, she asked Saki where they should go the following week, to which Saki replied the pool. Back in the present, Yuyuta informed Akiko that he had cram school that day and also that the AC was now fixed, causing her to celebrate the fact that Saki could now study in the living room again. Yuyuta then asked if Saki disliked people who stopped her from doing what she wanted to do, and when Akiko asked what he meant, Yuyuta gave an example which was planning something without her input and then asking her to join. Akiko said she didn't think Saki would appreciate that very much given her personality and claimed that she'd want it to be above board from start to finish. Akiko then asked Yuyuta if he was planning on asking Saki on a date, and he immediately denied that idea while reminding her that Saki was his sister. Yuyuta then brought up the fact that Saki liked to go a little overboard, sometimes by pushing herself too hard, and then said he wondered if she ever actually gave herself a break. Akiko asked if these concerns were why he was thinking about dragging her out to have some fun, and she started to wonder if Saki turned out that way because she was always so busy. She said Saki was trying to grow up as fast as possible and expressed her regret over the fact that she didn't give her a little more time to be a carefree brat. Akiko then asked Yuyuta for a favor, which was for him to make sure that Saki takes a break once in a while, and he agreed but stated that she might hate him for it. Akiko told him not to worry about it because she'd let him know what Saki's favorite thing in the world was, and Yuyuta knew she intended to tell him so he could use it to make her forgive him. A while later, Yuyuta met Saki in her room and tried to invite her for Maya's pool event, but she cut him off before he could even finish speaking by telling him that she wasn't going because she didn't have time. Yuyuta said he intended to go and asked her to share Maya's contact info with him, but Saki immediately refused and claimed that it was bad manners to give out someone's contact info without their permission. She said she'd try asking Maya and let him know when she gets an answer. While Yuyuta was at cram school, a girl named Kaho handed him an eraser of his which dropped on the floor. After the class, Yuyuta met Shiori on the way back, and they had a cheerful conversation until they ran into Saki, who smiled at them. At the bookstore, Yuyuta asked Saki about Maya's contact again, but she once again gave him a negative response. After work, Yuyuta got a text from Saki, telling him to go home without her because she'd be shopping that evening. On his way back, Yuyuta remembered their initial agreement not to expect anything from each other, and he also recalled when Saki first told him that Maya was her friend. When he got home, he searched that fridge and found some mixed rice. Just then, Saki walked in and gave him instructions on how to microwave the plate of rice he found, causing him to thank her. As he prepared the rice, he asked Saki if she wanted some iced coffee, and she replied that she did. He then asked about Maya's contact for that pool event and said she was probably waiting for his response. However, when Saki agreed to give him the contact info, Yuyuta confessed that he wasn't actually interested in the contact info or going alone to the pool. He said he wanted Saki to go have him at the pool, and when she said she didn't get him, he revealed that he was trying to make her jealous by saying he wanted to go. He asked if she wanted to go to the pool and then confessed that Akiko told him about how she used to love pool visits during her past years. Yuyuta said she acted differently whenever she talked about Maya, which was why he thought she'd jump at the offer to follow her to the pool. She claimed that she didn't have time because she needed to study, and when Yuyuta tried to suggest she relax for a bit, she immediately cut him off by yelling that she didn't need to relax. However, Yuyuta said he was concerned about her because if she kept pushing herself like that, she'd crash. He continued his pep talk by saying she needed to rest, sometimes even though she was trying to hurry to live an independent life, and she left him a paper with Maya's phone number as she left the room. The next morning, Saki met Yuyuta in the living room and told him that she slept by 6 a.m. the previous night, causing him to advise her to sleep a bit more. When she found out what time it was, she worried that she didn't make anything for Teichai to eat, but Yuyuta told her Teichai ate some bread which was in the fridge. She offered to make Yuyuta something to eat, but he stopped her on the way and told her to listen to what he had to say. He brought up the discussion they had on their first day together, where he said they needed to smooth things out easily, and then he said he didn't want her to make food for him in her current sleep-deprived state. She argued that it was her duty to cook, but he said her only mission for the day was to get some rest. He told her to take a seat while he made some toast for both of them. Afterwards, he served her the toast with some hot milk, and when she ate it, she smiled because of how delicious it was. When she tried to stir her milk, she noticed that it had whipped cream on top of it, so she smiled as she drank it. After finishing her drink, she agreed to go to the pool with Yuyuta, but stated that they had a problem because the pool party was set on one of their work days. However, Yuyuta said they'd make it work by trading shifts with other people. On their way out, Saki confessed that she was in a bad mood the previous day when she saw Yuyuta walking with Shiori, and she asked him if they were going out with each other. After confirming that they weren't, he asked why she asked him that question, and she replied that she wasn't sure. They got to a point in the road where Yuyuta wondered why he brought his bike for their walk, and Saki told him that he could be airheaded like that sometimes. Some days later, Saki was staring at her fish container while thinking about how she wanted to get to understand Yuyuta better. She realized she was attracted to him and then started skimming through her recent experiences with him again. Saki figured out that he was the kind of guy who paid attention to detail when he easily found a book which she spent more than 10 minutes looking for during work. She also remembered how he told her Shiori would have found it quicker, and she started to feel frustrated by how pea-brained she was. She recalled how Yuyuta comforted her the next day and brought up the pool thing with Maya. She thought that it was a horrible day because not only did she say some rude words to him in response, but she also had awful thoughts when she saw him hanging out with Shiori, which she didn't want to be forced to deal with. She wondered if Yuyuta liked girls with long hair like Shiori, and then remembered that she as well had long hair. When Yuyuta brought up the Maya pool thing again that night, she wondered why he was so worried about something so trivial, and she felt that she couldn't afford to play given the amount of studying she had to do. When she saw the nonchalant look on his face that night, she recognized it as the same disappointed look her mom had on her face sometime in the past when she turned down her offer to take her to the beach. Saki fantasized about a scenario where she and Yuyuta were having fun at the beach while their parents watched, and this made her feel warm inside. It was this feeling that made her decide to go to the pool with Yuyuta. Saki also remembered a time in the past when Akiko took her to a zoo where she saw all the different variations of Dragon Ball fans locked in cages and afterwards she got her a hippo doll as a souvenir. Back in the present, Saki tried to remember the soft sensation of the hippo doll she once had, and then she started to recall how bad she was when it came to dealing with friends. She was always bad at reading the room, but during the pool trip, she was able to properly blend in thanks to the help of Yuyuta. She saw that he was much better at handling people than she was, and also noticed that he spoke out when he didn't like something, which was one of the reasons she was so attracted to him. Saki watched as everyone had fun together during the pool party, and she noticed that Yuyuta was always trying to make sure everyone else had fun. She thought he was very cool and felt proud about the fact that she was the only one who truly knew how cool he was. Saki sat beside Yuyuta at the edge of the pool and asked if he was scared of jumping in. Yuyuta replied that he didn't want to mess up after becoming the center of attraction because it was a team game. Saki then told him she thought he was very cool because of how he assisted others behind the scenes, and he told her that he'd soon get embarrassed if she continued glazing him like that. Saki said she was done with her compliment, and the two of them sat there in silence for a while before Saki said she was going to swim a bit more. When Saki stood up, Yuyuta glared at her, and he couldn't keep his eyes off her while she played along with their friends. As he watched her goof off in that pool, he remembered every experience he'd had with her, and this made him realize that he liked her. On their way back, Yuyuta looked out the window while thinking about how he's never been great with girls because the issue with his parents left him with a cynical view of relationships between men and women. He realized that it was why he'd never fallen in love with anyone before now, and he wondered why he was suddenly feeling love for Saki despite the fact that she was his stepsister. On the way back home, Saki brought up the fact that Yuyuta had gotten close to Maya, and he explained that he was only thanking her because she took really good care of everything during the trip. When Yuyuta asked Saki if she had fun, she replied that she did so thanks to him. She told him that this was the first time in a long time that she was able to enjoy swimming in a pool, and then she thanked him for talking her into it. Yuyuta said he didn't really do anything, and just when he was about to confess his love for her, some fireworks went off in the area. As they stared at the fireworks display, Saki told Yuyuta that she admired the fact that he was a very dependable person, and then once again told him that he was cool before calling him Big Brother for the first time. Afterwards, she explained that he'd become someone she could always rely on like a true big brother, and he was happy to hear that. However, she said it sounded a bit weird, and as they walked along, Yuyuta felt relieved that he didn't confess his feelings. After hearing her call him Big Brother, he realized that all the positive emotions she was showing him was based on the fact that he was her family, which made him feel stupid for trying to make a move on her. He got to a street corner where he started wondering how to act when he got home, and as Saki made her way home, she wondered if she'd be able to fully reject Yuyuta's feelings if he confessed to her. The next morning, Akiko told Saki that she had a break from work that day, and when she asked for Yuyuta, Akiko said she was still napping in his room. When Saki told Akiko that she and Yuyuta had the day off, Akiko got excited about the fact that they could spend the day together as a family. As Saki walked through the hallway, she decided to lock away the feelings she had for Yuyuta because she didn't want to ruin their parents' happiness or cause any problems for Yuyuta. Because of this, she threw the key to the drawer where her diary was locked into that ocean. When Yuyuta woke up, Teichai teased him for skipping cram school, and Akiko thanked him for taking Saki to the pool. Akiko said she was glad that Yuyuta was her little brother, and then she showed him Saki's favorite thing on her phone. However, Yuyuta couldn't focus on the image on Akiko's phone because he was blinded by that beauty of Saki who walked into the living room with a new shirt hairdo as she called him Big Brother again. She started to recall the memories she'd written in her diary again, and afterwards, she decided that she would never write down how she truly felt ever again. She decided that she'd relive her memories inside her head from that point onwards while continuing her life as Yuyuta's stepsister. Some days later, Maya and some other classmates of hers were gathered in class discussing their plans for an upcoming event, and when they were done, Maya asked Saki if she'd join her and some other NPCs in her class to do some karaoke. Saki said she couldn't join her because she had some errands to run, and after hearing this, one of their classmates consoled another classmate of hers named Shinjo, who was planning to shoot his shot during the karaoke event. As Saki walked back home, she thought to herself that a stepbrother was nothing more than a stranger because they suddenly started living together after meeting for the first time. When she got home, she met Akiko in the living room who served her some tea before asking how things were with Yuyuta at school. Saki replied that things were smooth because they were in desperate classes, and then Akiko asked if anyone at school knew about their brother-sister relationship. Saki said she hadn't told anyone yet and asked Akiko why she was asking all those questions instead of talking about the parent-teacher meeting like she initially planned. Akiko said she didn't want to bother Teichai because he was very busy at the moment, which was why she was thinking of going to the meetings of both Yuyuta and Saki. However, her bar was too small to allow her to take multiple days off, and she also pointed out that doing both meetings back-to-back would make other students find out that Saki and Yuyuta were siblings. Just then, Yuyuta came back home and Akiko said he dropped by at the right time because they were just talking about his parent-teacher meeting. She told Yuyuta about her plans to attend both meetings and said it would work out if he and Saki could schedule their meetings on different days. She claimed that it would be safer that way because neither of them had told anyone at school about their brother-sister relationship yet, but Yuyuta pointed out that she was just as busy as Teichai. However, Akiko insisted on going forward with that plan and told him not to worry as she left for work. After she left, Saki also left the house while informing Yuyuta that she was heading out for work. While Saki was at her desk, she remembered Akiko telling her that one of the reasons she wanted to show up for the parent-teacher meeting for Yuyuta was because she felt that he hadn't accepted her as a mother yet. Some hours later, Saki arrived home to see Yuyuta serving up some dinner, and there was a bit of an awkward silence in the room before both of them brought up the parent-teacher meeting at the same time. Yuyuta suggested they eat while they talk and Saki agreed. After the meal, Saki complimented Yuyuta's cooking and Yuyuta thanked her before bringing up the meetings again. Saki said that it was kinda selfish that they were keeping their secret for themselves without minding how it affected their parents. Yuyuta said he didn't have a problem with people knowing they were siblings and Saki told him she felt the same way. She then brought up the fact that Akiko faced health problems whenever she pushed herself too hard and Yuyuta said he didn't want to make things more difficult for both of their parents, so they decided to hold their meetings on the same day so that Akiko could only go once. Saki then suggested they inform Akiko about their decision together, and when Yuyuta agreed, the both of them did the dishes together while thinking about how they needed to suppress the feelings they had for each other because they were family. As Yuyuta made breakfast the next day, Teichai asked him if he was sure of his decision and Yuyuta responded that he and Saki already decided that it was unnatural for them to keep hiding the fact that they were siblings. Teichai brought up how Akiko once told him she wanted them to be a real family, and then he claimed that if Akiko accepted Yuyuta as part of her family, it would make her very happy. Just then, Saki entered the room and apologized over the fact that she hadn't made breakfast. However, Teichai said she didn't need to bother about it, and when he left, Saki showed Yuyuta how happy Akiko was to hear about their decision. A while later, Yuyuta told Tamikazu in school about the fact that Saki was his sister, and he immediately apologized for all the nasty stuff he said about her. Meanwhile, Maya was goofing off in class with a group of her classmates when Shinjo suggested they all go bowling soon. All of them agreed to the idea except Saki, who said she planned to study on the day of their hangout. However, Shinjo suggested they do a study session somewhere and Maya backed up his idea by offering her house as a location for their event. Everyone agreed to this idea and Saki said she was okay with it as well. Afterwards, they all walked downstairs together and Yuyuta watched from a corner as Saki laughed while her friends played around. At work, Shiori asked Yuyuta if he missed Saki since they hadn't had shared shifts in a while, but he said he didn't feel that way because she was only his little sister. Shiori then invited him for an open campus event which was happening at her college, but Yuyuta refused because of the fact that it was an all-girls college. Just then, he noticed a girl struggling to find a book, and when he approached her, he saw that it was Kaho, the girl who handed him his eraser during summer class. She introduced herself to him and yapped about the meaning of her name for several minutes before walking away. That evening, Saki enjoyed some miso soup with Teichai and afterwards, she started to think about the time she spent with Yuyuta so far. After covering up Yuyuta's food, she realized that the best way to keep her distance from Yuyuta was to stop doing things for him, but she worried that it would mean breaking ties with him completely. She realized she didn't want to avoid him completely, and she worried that she'd wind up with regrets about how things ended up playing out. On the day of the meeting, the family were having breakfast together and Akiko brought up the fact that she didn't get much sleep the previous night, causing Teichai to advise her to get some sleep before the meeting time. She agreed to this idea and Teichai agreed to personally call her when it was time for the meeting. At school, Yuyuta met up with Maya in the library and told her the time for his parent-teacher meeting, which was very close to the time for hers. Maya asked Yuyuta if he was into Saki, and he replied that he wasn't before reminding her that they were siblings. Maya then asked if it was okay if she tried to set Saki up with another guy who was hoping to rizz her up, and Yuyuta replied that it wasn't really something she should be asking his permission for. Some hours later, Yuyuta guided Akiko into school while having some small talk, and when they got to the meeting room, Akiko promised to do her best. During the meeting, Yuyuta's homeroom teacher told Akiko that if Yuyuta kept working as hard as he currently was, he wouldn't have any problems getting into a famous university in Tokyo. The teacher assumed that it was because Akiko did a great job in bringing him up, and this made Akiko feel a bit uneasy, but before she could say anything in response, Yuyuta said he was right and claimed that he was grateful to his mother Akiko. The teacher then told Yuyuta that he only needed to choose where he'd like to apply, and he'd get his stamp of approval. In Saki's classroom, Saki's homeroom teacher said she was worried about Saki during the first term because of the unpleasant rumors circulating about her behavior, but then she said she saw things differently because Saki proved that she wasn't anything like the rumors said. She brought up how teachers often spoke negatively about her baddie appearance, but said she understood Saki's desire to dress pretty. However, she warned her to keep her fashion within the appropriate bounds for a high school student, and Saki agreed to do so. The teacher then brought up how Saki's formerly disastrous language arts grade started improving in the second term, and she asked Saki if there were any colleges she'd like to apply to. Saki said she'd like to find one with low tuition costs that'll put her in a good position for the job market, and the teacher suggested a school named Tsukunomiya Women's College. Saki said it was a prestigious school, but the teacher assured her that she could get into the school if she kept working hard and added that it would definitely give her a boost on the job market. The teacher revealed that it was a public school with low tuition and said it was exactly what she was looking for. She then informed Saki about an open campus event being held at the school that weekend where she could go see the school for herself. As Akiko and Saki walked home from school, Saki told Akiko that she'd visit the open campus event at Tsukunomiya School the next day, and Akiko was just happy about the fact that she and Yuyuta were such good students. At the open campus event, Shiori was thrilled to see Saki at the reception area, and when Saki told her she was there for the sample lecture, Shiori asked to show her around the school. Just then, one of the teachers named Kudo interrupted their bonding session, and Shiori introduced her to Saki as the teacher in charge of giving the sample lecture on ethics during that event. When she introduced Saki to her, Kudo came up close to her and immediately guessed that there was something bothering her. Kudo then asked Saki to join her in her office since there was still time before the lecture, and said that she might be able to give Saki the answer she was looking for. At the same time, Yuyuta ran into Kaho by the library, and she gave him the signal to stay silent before he sat down on a seat close to her. In Kudo's office, Kudo spoke through a weird hand puppet as she told Saki that she'd already heard about her relationship with Yuyuta from Shiori. The wannabe Sherlock Holmes presumed that Saki had fallen for Yuyuta, while knowing that ethical standards forbid them from entering a relationship. When Saki asked how she knew that, Kudo said she'd given her all the evidence she needed with that question. Kudo then directly asked Saki if she had romantic feelings for Yuyuta, and Saki repeatedly reminded her that he was her brother before admitting that she wasn't sure herself. Meanwhile, Kaho met Yuyuta outside the library, and they went to the convenience store together to get some food. Back at Kudo's office, Saki explained her whole situation to Kudo, and Kudo asked Saki if what she felt wasn't romantic feelings at all. Kudo brought up how Saki used fashion to stand out, and then asked Saki the real reason why she came to that college. Saki said she wanted to prove she could use whatever she had to look pretty, and then admitted that she came to that school because she thought it would help her make the best life she could for herself. However, Kudo said Saki was the kind of person who didn't want other people seeing her weaknesses and also the kind of person who's always fighting by herself. She pointed out that her character had a constant craving for love and approval, which would make her get attached to anyone who showed her kindness. At the same time, Kaho told Yuyuta about how she only went to school at night, and when he didn't judge her like everyone else, she claimed he was someone who looked at things impartially. Back at the office, Kudo presumed that Saki fell for Yuyuta because he was the one who landed by her side when the majority of people she met couldn't understand her. Kudo then advised her to talk to a wider variety of people so that she could one day find someone that she could be drawn to. However, Kudo said if her feelings remained unchanged after she connected to someone else, then she should treasure them because those were her real feelings. Afterwards, Kudo gave the sample lecture and Yuyuta agreed to have lunch with Kaho again the next day. During dinner that night, Saki told Yuyuta about how she met Shiori and Kaho at the college, and he asked if she planned to go to Tsukunomiya. Saki said she wanted to give it a shot, and when she asked Yuyuta if he intended to keep attending his study lounge, Yuyuta told her he was meeting a friend there for lunch the next day. Saki said it was great, and Yuyuta thought things were going great because they were both making new connections that would ensure that they stayed within the boundaries of a brother-sister relationship. Some days later, Saki was at the study session with her classmates, and as they studied, Saki realized that relying on others was a skill which could help people to understand each other's feelings and compromise more. However, she felt that she'd been violating her own policy because she couldn't share her feelings with Yuyuta, who was the person she needed to cooperate with. A few hours later, Saki grabbed some snacks at the convenience store with Shinjo, and as they walked back to Maya's home together, Shinjo revealed to her that he had a little sister. Meanwhile, Yuyuta was having lunch at a diner with Kaho, and when Kaho noticed that he wasn't listening to her, she told him she was worried about him. She pointed out that his facial expression suggested that he was running from something, and she guessed that he was studying at the lounge because he was looking for a form of sanctuary from a painful romantic relationship. Yuyuta confessed that he fell for someone he should have never fallen for, and he knew that getting what he wanted would only cause problems for everyone he knew. He said he knew he needed to forget about the whole thing, but he couldn't bring himself to do so. Kaho then invited him to come out to the town with her that night. At the same time, Shinjo confessed to Saki that he really liked her, but she turned him down in a gentle way. When he asked if she was seeing someone else, she said she didn't, and when he asked if she had a crush, her answer was also negative. Shinjo took the L like a champ by promising not to bother her about his feelings again and walking away with a smile. While Saki was in the elevator, she remembered the words of Kaho about how she should treasure her feelings after confirming them to be real. Meanwhile, Yuyuta was with Kaho at a high spot in the city, and she told him he reminded her of her old self, which was something she found annoying. She said his ability to face things objectively was born from the fact that he was raised without any women he could count on. When he asked if it was the same for her, she said yes, and revealed that she lost her faith in humanity as a whole at some point. She revealed that she lost both of her parents in an accident when she was younger, and she found out that both of their families opposed their marriage. Everyone mocked them at their funeral, saying they got what they asked for, but the emotion that came over Kaho wasn't hatred or sadness, but rather a sense of giving up. After her story, Kaho said she didn't believe his claim to have lost faith in women and quoted her auntie by telling him not to give up on his feelings. She told him some other deep words which her auntie told her, which made her spend the night crying over her father and mother's deaths during her past years. She then asked Yuyuta if he was trying to bottle up his feelings, and he replied that he couldn't let out the feelings he had. However, Kaho told him that he'd be scarred forever if he didn't resolve the issue he was having. Yuyuta argued that his feelings were selfish, but Kaho cut him off by saying that feelings themselves are selfish things. The next day, Yuyuta told Saki that he saw her with Shinjo the previous day, and he also revealed that he was out that night with Kaho. He then confessed that he had very strong feelings for Saki, and she said he was lying, but he said he'd never do something as cruel as joking about something like that. He made things clearer by saying that he liked her, and she still tried to swerve him by claiming that his feelings were purely based on the fact that they were siblings. Saki suddenly got overwhelmed by emotion and ran to her room, causing him to follow her. Yuyuta knocked on her door several times, but she stayed covered under her sheets with her hands trembling. Eventually, she opened the door and said she was okay with it before dragging him inside. She hugged him tightly and then grabbed his hand as she claimed that his feelings made her happy. Saki said she wasn't sure if the feelings she had for him were because he was her brother or something else, but claimed that she wanted to comfort him by giving him hugs when she needed to. Saki then proposed they reach a compromise because they didn't want to cause problems for their parents, and Yuyuta agreed. She proposed that they stay brother and sister in front of everyone, but before she could finish the other part of her condition, she burst into tears. Yuyuta comforted her by grabbing her hands and saying he counted on her. He got emotional as well as he proposed that they protect what they had together, and a teary-eyed Saki thanked him. Who would you rather have intimate relations with? An energetic coworker like Shiori or a hot stepsister like Saki? Let us know in the comments. That's all for today's video. If you like anime recaps like this, check out this video here.